Hey everybody, welcome back. It's Zach Thomas here with 3 Shades of Blue TV, and we're talking about the power forward position, the 4 spot for the Memphis Grizzlies this year. As we all know, Zach Randolph champions, and he anchors that 4 spot for our starting lineup. But beyond that, what is it going to look like this year for the Grizzlies? Who's going to get the minutes? How are we going to divide that? Is Tayshaun Prince going to play a little bit 4? Could you put Jarnell Stokes? Does Kosta Koufos even slide over to a 4 next to Marc Gasol? Well, that's what we're going to talk about. I've got some of my good buddies here from 3 Shades of Blue. We've got Anthony Sane, Cameron Simlar, Chip Crane, and Steve Danziger. So, yeah, do you like that? Was it Dan Ziger?
There you go.
Danziger.
Danziger.
Sorry about that, man. Anyway, so let's talk about the 4 position. Let's talk about Zebo. Now, behind Zebo, how do you see Dave Yeager using that position, first of all, in his offense? We've always played an inside-out, but this is a new offense. From the preseason games, from what you've heard around the league and what you've heard chatter about from the coaching staff and the team, Anthony, what do you think about the 4 position?
Well, I think it'll be John Lure. He has a nice change of pace with Zebo, as opposed to Zebo. I mean, with him being that true stretch 4 that we haven't had. I can't recall us ever having a real stretch 4 on the team. But I think he'll be the obvious pick. I think as the season comes along that Jarnell Stokes will obviously get more minutes. He may get more minutes at the 5, actually, but I think he's going to come along and be fine. And, of course, we know that Yeager's going to try to find some type of minutes for Tayshaun Prince, so he'll probably get some minutes there as well. You know, last year, a lot of his best games were when he played defense at backup power forward, so I'm sure you'll probably see him some there as well.
Yeah, and let's talk about that. Steve, what do you think about that? What do you think about Tayshaun Prince playing the 4?
I love it. No, actually, the thing about Tayshaun Prince is I think that if you play John Lure a little bit more, you open yourself to the possibility of letting Prince play some minutes, even at the 3, because Lure can't defend the 3, and Tayshaun Prince can't play the 3 offensively anymore. So it's almost like a match made in heaven there. What I'm more intrigued by at the power forward position, if you don't mind me switching gears, is Jarnell Stokes and how they're going to bring him along. I've seen a lot on Twitter, and I've heard a lot of people talking about maybe using the D-League as a tool to develop him. But I think that he's the type of player that needs to play against NBA bigs in order to do so. Yeah. I've had this conversation with Chip a long time ago about guards, about how when they go down to the D-League, the reason they don't develop is because they're playing against big men that aren't NBA caliber. So they're used to being able to slash and open up space for themselves against guys that aren't really a threat to send their shots back the other way. When they come into the NBA, it's a whole different ballgame. And the thing about Stokes is I think he'll be able to do it, but it's going to take him some time to get used to playing against serious defensive, threatening big men on a nightly basis. And he's not going to get that in the D-League, so he's going to have to get NBA minutes somewhere along the way. The thing is, of course, Lure has a total different flavor offensively, and he's going to have to fight him for minutes or, dare I say, hope somebody gets hurt. So I think that's something to really stay tuned to.
Chip, what are your thoughts?
I could see a lot of alternating back and forth for Stokes with the D-League. The reason you want to keep him up on the big roster is not necessarily for game minutes, but practice. Because if you put Stokes in the D-League, you're looking at a guy who's going to put up 25 points and 12 boards every single night because there's simply no one in the D-League that can match his strength and size inside. There just isn't. That's the problem with the D-League. It's a wing game. You bring in a big guy like him, you're going to see a lot of him putting up huge numbers and people up here in Memphis saying, why is he there? He should be playing here. I think the better move, let him bang with Zach. Learn the game from Zach in practices. And also he can emulate Zach and give Zach rest at practice. And he's not going to be a lure. He's not going to be an offensive player. Frankly, we're never going to run an offensive play for Stokes this year. That's just not going to happen. I don't care about his offensive game. He's going to come in to be a bruiser, to collect fouls, to get rebounds, and to be a intimidating force deep off our bench. He's, kind of the bruiser goon guy. Next year, the year after that, that's when we want to see his game develop offensively. But we don't need him being an offensive threat right now, and I personally don't want to see him think he should become one. We got other guys who can score. his role is to learn the defense, learn how to play the game without committing fouls, and understand the pace and the size and the strength of the game.
Yeah, I think you're right on. That's a great point. It's wild to think that the Grizzlies finally have a depth chart problem. In the past, we've always been concerned with who's going to be the backup big men, and last year obviously Ed Davis was hopefully going to be the potential replacement for Zach Randolph. Well, that didn't happen. So now everyone's looking to Jarnell Stokes to be that guy. But I think for us, we need to make sure that we don't pressure him and try to make him something that he doesn't need to be. And so that's a great point. Now let's focus a little bit on the Twin Towers scenario. We've seen it a lot last year when Gasol came back and he was healthy. We've seen it some in the preseason as well. What does it look like, Cam, with Costa Koufos and Marc Gasol together? What does that impose? What does that entail for opposing teams as well as for the Grizzlies?
Well, I think it can be great for the Grizzlies because I remember the one game I really noticed that it worked was last year in the first game against the Clippers when Coach Yeager played both of them together, and I noticed how well it worked and how it can be tough for opponents to defend because with Marc Gasol, he can be so crafty with his passing that he can be more of a playmaker. Instead of being just the inside guy, he can be more of a passer, creator of the offense, and have Costa inside as a rim protector.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the advanced statistics show that Gasol and Koufos are a very good, efficient defensive powerhouse in the middle there. We know that with Gasol, you're going to have an anchor on defense at the 5, and then I think Z-Bo is not necessarily the best defender, which if Lure can come in and just play up to Z-Bo's level of defense this year, I think Yeager's already said that John Lure, he's expecting big things from him this year. He's hoping to see a lot of development to be able to stretch the defense so that Gasol can have a little more room, so that some of our wings can get into the lane on cutting drives, so Mike Conley can get to the basket. But regardless of what happens, I think the depth chart's going to go Z-Bo first off and then Lure first off the bench, and then you've got Jarnell Stokes will be behind that in a true 4 lineup. But I think Koufos could play the 4, Tayshaun could play the 4, depending on the matchup and the roster that we're facing. So. Anyway, thanks, guys, for watching. That is the Grizzlies' power forward position, and we hope you'll join us for the rest of our series that's continuing on this week.